This is Sky News at 10, live from Jerusalem, our top story tonight. I may do it, I may not. Donald Trump refuses to say if he's decided to launch military action against Iran.
Nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this, that Iran's got a lot of trouble.
From Iran, a message of defiance saying the country will never surrender or grovel at the gates of the White House. As Donald Trump keeps the world and his allies guessing, Sir Keir Starmer gathers his ministers to discuss the UK's position should the US act.
Also tonight, the government facing a major rebellion over its plans for welfare reform. Ministers say changes to disability benefits will save £5 billion a year. Backbench MPs say the plans are awful and not very Labour. A Yorkshirewoman dies of rabies 4 months after she was scratched by a puppy while on holiday in Morocco. A hero's welcome for the rap group Kneecap as one of its members faces a terror charge in London. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight.
Good evening. No one knows what I'm going to do. Those were the words of Donald Trump tonight as he refused to say if he's planning to launch military action against Iran. Tensions continue to rise and Iran's supreme leader broke his silence today, saying any US involvement in the conflict would cause America irreparable damage. Donald Trump is locked in another meeting in the White House Situation Room tonight. For now, he's keeping the world guessing, including his allies. Diplomatic efforts continue, but Sir Keir Starmer gathered his ministers today to discuss the UK's position if the US decides to act. More on that in a moment, but first, from Washington, Sky's David Blevins reports.
The Stars and Stripes and the strategy. They raised a new flag at the White House and the stakes even higher. The president not ruling out a US strike on Iran.
I may do it, I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this, that Iran's got a lot of trouble and they want to negotiate.
In a post online, the Iranian mission to the UN said no Iranian official has ever asked to grovel at the gates of the White House, adding the only thing more despicable than what they called Donald Trump's lies was his threat to take out Iran's supreme leader. But he's not backing down on his demand for a white flag from Iran.
What does unconditional surrender mean?
Well, you know what it means, unconditional.
Can you explain it for those who don't?
Very simple words, very simple. Unconditional surrender. That means I've had it. Okay, I've had it. I give up. No more. Then we go blow up all the, all the nuclear stuff that's all over the place.
But behind the scenes, Republicans are split. Some interventionist, some isolationist. Texas Senator Ted Cruz and hugely popular right-wing commentator Tucker Carlson, both Trump allies, publicly clashing over the issue.
What's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay,
it's not even. You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country.
And Senator Cruz remains defiant.
I think Iran acquiring a nuclear weapon is an acute threat to the national security of the United States, and I think the president is acting to stand with Israel, our friend and ally, and it's acting to defend America.
But isn't it a breach of his campaign promise not to bring America back into another foreign war?
No, he is not. Nobody's talking about invading Iran. We're not going to see boots on the ground.
And what do you say to Republican voters who say this is not what the American people want?
The overwhelming majority of Americans, nearly 80%, support President Trump and support President Trump defending us against an Iranian nuclear weapon.
This is a critical decision for President Trump, not just in terms of global stability or the potential implications of American involvement in another foreign war, but because it's the issue threatening to split his own base.
He's big on symbolism, but the judgment call he has to make will be significant. In London, Paris and elsewhere, governments are awaiting America's next move. It more than overshadows his presidency. It could define it.
David Blevins reporting there, but let me just bring you some breaking news, because the Israeli military says that missiles have been launched from Iran towards Israel. So as these conversations, this diplomacy continues and these meetings, including the president in the Situation Room, we are still getting reports that the Israeli military saying that missiles have been launched from Iran towards Israel. So another difficult night, both in Israel and no doubt in Iran as well. Now, in a moment, I'll be speaking to our defence and security correspondent, Deborah Haynes, who's at the Ministry of Defence. But first, let's go to David, who joins us from Washington. And David, we understand that President Trump is now convening a Situation Room meeting to discuss the escalating situation in the region.
Yes, we are told a meeting got underway in the Situation Room at the White House just before 5 p.m. local, that's 10 p.m. in the UK. But of course, those attending that meeting are not the only people advising Donald Trump right now. It really depends how you define the word team, because the Donald Trump team is divided. There are those who believe America must now row in and support Israel by launching military strikes on Iran to prevent it having nuclear capabilities. But of course, there is an even larger group who believe the president must honour his pledge not to bring America back into another war in a faraway place. He has acknowledged that split himself, but has been largely dismissive of allies who are critical of him for even having the option on the table of military action. Rather sarcastically, he says, if they think it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear bomb, then they should oppose me. He clearly has shifted position on this from supporting negotiations to now calling for unconditional surrender. And he's weighing up two things: military action or more diplomacy to try and achieve that unconditional surrender. But striking a balance within his own camp may be an even greater challenge.
David, thank you so much. And just to let our viewers know, just in the last few minutes, we have heard sirens here over Jerusalem as well. Deborah, I'm going to come to you because, of course, there are meetings going on in the UK, including that Cobra meeting. Any more information about what exactly was discussed?
Well, I'm outside the Ministry of Defence, and there'll be meetings and planning taking place through the night in this building. The UK needs to prepare for any kind of eventuality. The Cobra emergency meeting today, chaired by the Prime Minister, to discuss the crisis. For Sir Keir Starmer, he needs to decide if Donald Trump does launch military action against Iran, whether he'll allow the Americans to use British bases like in Diego Garcia to place their bomber planes to launch strikes against Iran as well. Any military action that the Americans decide to participate in could potentially raise the risk for many British forces that are based across the region. So that is another big crisis point for the Prime Minister. It's why you now have increased jets at an RAF base in Cyprus, and there is the potential, I've been told, of more warplanes heading out there. For the UK, the focus is absolutely on de-escalation, attempting diplomacy. The Defence Secretary was in Paris today meeting his French counterpart, and again both of them asking for de-escalation. And the British Foreign Minister the Foreign Secretary is going to be in Geneva on Friday with his French, German and Iranian counterparts, where they're going to be talking about the nuclear deal and attempting de-escalation in that way. But of course, the fighting continues.
Deborah, thank you so much for that update. Now, as Donald Trump considers taking action against Iran, it's worth considering the type of action required to cause serious damage to the country's nuclear program. Our defense and security analyst, Professor Michael Clark, has been looking at the military hardware that could be used.
There's been a lot of US military movement into the Middle East in the last 24 hours. President Trump is evidently giving himself a full range of military options. The Carl Vinson Carrier Strike Group, that's an aircraft carrier and its accompanying attack ships and submarines, as well as the battleship Princeton, is already in the Arabian Sea. The George H.W. Bush Carrier Strike Group is moving from the Atlantic towards the Eastern Mediterranean. And the Nimitz, with all of its strike assets, left the Philippine Sea several days ago, and that's on its way from the Indian Ocean towards the Gulf. So the US will have 2, maybe 3 carrier strike groups on station across the region very soon, each of them with several squadrons of F-18 fighter bombers with missiles and drones that it can deploy against a range of adversaries. And the US and also its allies are sending more aircraft to the region. Britain has reinforced its Typhoon jet fleet at Akrotiri in Cyprus, and US planes may be dispersed around the various US bases in the region, in Qatar, in Kuwait, in the United Arab Emirates and in Saudi Arabia. Of these, the 2 biggest bases are in Qatar and the UAE, where the US stations forces permanently. A dozen American F-35s were seen leaving Mildenhall in Suffolk with their accompanying refuelling tanker only yesterday. Now, of course, everyone is asking whether the US is about to deploy the massive bunker-busting bomb, the GBU-57, the massive ordnance penetrator, as it's called, and that could destroy deep underground facilities inside Iran. Well, that bomb can only be carried on the B-2 Spirit strategic bomber, this one. But they don't even have to be in the region to operate. B-2s can operate from Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, or they could still fly from their home base in Missouri, drop bombs in Iran and still make it home again. Meanwhile, Israel and Iran are attacking each other from the air. Now, the pattern of Israeli attacks on Iran indicates how methodically they're working through a target set to damage Iran's nuclear program, to hobble its military and attack the infrastructure that supports the military. Iran's attacks against Israel, on the other hand, are less methodical and almost certainly less effective. With lower accuracy, fewer missiles getting through, the Iranians are hitting more civilian and residential targets, and to be honest, that won't do them very much strategic good. We're evidently approaching some sort of turning point in this crisis. Military offensives and preparations for even greater offensives don't hang fire for very long, and military activity tends to take on a life of its own if it is not very carefully controlled.
Well, Yalda and team taking shelter now after the Israeli Defense Forces identified missiles fired from Iran towards the state of Israel. Now, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei issued a defiant message today, rejecting Donald Trump's calls for surrender and threatening that any US involvement could cause America irreparable damage. All the while, attacks continue on both sides, but people we've spoken to in Israel say the threat of all-out war with Iran isn't facing them. Here's Sky's Cordelia Lynch.
Israel has a decisive edge in this conflict, dominating the skies over Tehran for 6 days. But in a defiant address, Iran's supreme leader vowed to stand firm and issued a warning to America.
The Iranian nation will not surrender to anyone aiming to impose anything on it. The damage to America, if it gets militarily involved, would be an irreparable damage, no doubt.
But this former national security advisor says that's an empty threat. And the US is only needed for one thing: bunker-busting bombs to destroy Iran's Fordo nuclear site. Do you think that Israel needs America militarily in this moment?
We need America for one purpose. There is a big facility in Fordo. We don't have the capabilities to destroy it from the air. The Americans have better capabilities to do it from the air. And for that, we need the Americans.
Iran has warned that any US intervention would be a recipe for all-out regional war. Do you think Netanyahu has an appetite for that?
I think that the Iranians are using irrelevant language. They are bluffing. They don't have the capabilities that they had 2 years ago. Hezbollah is gone. Hamas doesn't exist as a threat.
Many Israelis have been raised on the belief Iran is an existential threat. Now, there's some swagger on show.
I want to finish with Iran, and all the tourists come to Israel. Now, no tourists.
Netanyahu knows he not only has the support of the public, but also his opponents. This is Neve Tzedek, the first Jewish neighborhood built outside the old city of Jaffa. Iran has issued an evacuation notice to residents here, but it doesn't feel like it. People seem unfazed, almost confident in the face of that threat.
I'm very relaxed here. This is Israel, you know. We have a power, we have a good army, and we are safe here.
But this is a perilous moment with no white flag yet. All eyes are on America and a leader who can so quickly turn. Cordelia Lynch, Sky News, Tel Aviv, Israel.
Let's bring in Cordelia, who's live in Tel Aviv for us tonight. So President Putin speaking right now about the situation in Iran. President Trump, we know, is still in the Situation Room at the White House. Is there still hope for diplomacy?
Well, there is certainly hope. There is certainly a push for it, but there is a great deal of jeopardy and uncertainty. And that's playing out here on the ground every day here in Tel Aviv as well. I've just put on my flak jacket because we've just heard sirens yet again. There's a rhythm to every day. Sometimes the incoming expected at different times, but certainly I think there is this kind of expectation here, lots of people moving down to the shelters and trying to adjust to the constant warnings that they're hearing. Meanwhile, on the global stage, we're expecting this Friday possible talks between the UK, France, Germany, foreign ministers from those countries and their Iranian counterpart. That is an effort to try and persuade, we understand, Iran to commit to not having nuclear capabilities for military purposes. That is something Tehran, of course, has always denied anyway. But as that plays out there, and David Lammy, Britain's Foreign Secretary, is due to meet Marco Rubio, his US counterpart, in Washington, there is the stark reality here of an Israel that is very determined, that says that it will not stop until it reaches a conclusive sense of victory in this. Quite what that victory looks like is very uncertain. But look, I think everyone awaits with bated breath the decision of one man, Donald Trump, and no one really knows exactly what he's going to do here.
Cordelia, thank you very much indeed. Let's just bring you some breaking news, and this is quoting the Wall Street Journal. President Trump told senior aides late on Tuesday that he'd approved of attack plans for Iran, but was holding off on giving the final order to see if Tehran would abandon its nuclear program. They are quoting, the newspaper quoting 3 people familiar with those deliberations. Trump is hoping that threatening to join Israel's strikes on Iran, which continued for a 6th day, as you know, will compel Tehran to meet his demands. This is according to those sources, speaking, as I said, to the Wall Street Journal. Another meeting underway in the Situation Room. I may or I may not, is what we heard from Donald Trump today, certainly keeping the pressure on Iran, who today said they would never surrender. So to Iran now. Tonight, the Iranian government announcing temporary restrictions on internet access, claiming it's doing so to prevent Israel from threatening property and lives. Communication with those inside Iran has been increasingly difficult since this conflict erupted. But Sky's Lisa Holland has managed to speak to people in the cities of Tehran and Mashhad, as well as their loved ones in the UK.
These are videos shared with Sky News from people under Israeli bombardment inside Iran. They've painted a picture of fear and uncertainty. Communication is now incredibly difficult, and people are afraid to talk to Western journalists. But we managed to establish Zoom contact with a member of a group of anti-regime activists in the capital, Tehran. We've changed his voice to protect his identity.
I can hear the sounds from my living room, from moment to moment, because I'm in the center of Tehran. I've experienced the sound of explosions and fires. I've seen it with my own eyes. People are getting panicked, and they're helping each other.
With a near total internet blackout in Iran, British Iranians in the UK, like Amir and Atiye, are struggling to get in touch with friends and family.
Yeah, that's not working.
As we film, after several attempts, Amir gets through to his friend, who we're calling Ali.
Can you put him on speaker?
Yes, sure.
Ali has agreed for us to use his voice.
My wife is in a hospital, and I have to go there all the time. I don't have any view. I don't know how can I handle that.
Ali shared pictures with us that he'd filmed of huge petrol queues. He spoke to us from the eastern city of Mashhad.
This is the problem I have right now, and I'm looking for gas. All the people fear and have a problem to prepare money to buy anything. The bank is closed. I'm really angry. We are stuck in the middle of war between our government and Israel.
But with America threatening to join the conflict, the activist we spoke to in Tehran told us the Iranian government is still strong.
At the moment, there is high security inside Tehran, and the regime is still able to silence people. So that's why you're not seeing those people who are against the Islamic Republic. They're not coming out, because if they come out, they will die.
Are you afraid of American intervention in this conflict?
Not at all, because the Americans, we believe, are not going to fight with the people. They are fighting with the Islamic Republic. So that's why we're not afraid.
Communication with Iran is getting worse by the day. Activists say this could be a critical moment in Iranian history. Lisa Holland, Sky News.
So once again, the Israeli military have said that missiles have been launched from Iran towards Israel. Parts of the country once again under alert. We're certainly keeping an eye on those live pictures for you through this evening. We're back here now, and the government is facing a major rebellion over its plans to reform the welfare system. The changes could save up to £5 billion a year, but backbench MPs have called the plans awful and not very Labour. Our political correspondent, Tamara Cohen, has more.
People are terrified, we're angry that yet again we're the scapegoat. Daily living is 110.
Kathy has relied on benefits since a serious car accident left her with chronic pain and mobility problems. But according to the new criteria, she'd lose her personal independence payment of over £400 a month.
It would mean I would be at local food banks to actually be able to eat.
She feels the government's priorities are wrong.
Don't label us scroungers, we're not scroungers. If I could work, I would work. And saying that you will help me find a job, where's the job coming from?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Angela Rayner defended the reforms under questioning from MPs.
Those who want to work should be able to work, and those who can never work should be protected. The current system we've inherited doesn't support those that need that support, and also doesn't allow and enable those to get opportunities for employment. I have personal experience of it. I know how some people are fearful of the changes. We are the party of the welfare state, Mr Speaker. We set it up back after the Second World War, and we believe it should be there for people who need it, but we should also help people into work.
Personal independence payments for daily living costs will be removed from 800,000 current and future disabled claimants, with an average loss of £4,500 a year. Carers for people who lose PIP may lose their allowance, and the health element of universal credit will be frozen at £97 a week and cut for new claimants. The government will give 200,000 people with the most severe conditions a higher rate, and they will not face work assessments.
Ministers have been making the case that the welfare bill is rising unsustainably, with 1 in 10 people of working age now on a sickness and disability benefit. But dozens of Labour MPs are worried about those who will lose out, and the government faces a major rebellion.
This Labour MP spent time on benefits herself after being forced from her job by illness. She says she can't support the changes.
It's really not good enough because we know so many people this is going to affect. We know PIP can be a gateway to getting other benefits like carers allowance, which really help families just survive. We're not even talking about people having some great lifestyle. They're literally barely surviving on these payments. It's just all doesn't feel very Labour to me.
Back in Eastbourne, Kathy can only wait and see. The government say the welfare bill will still rise, just more slowly. MPs will get their first vote next month on whether these reforms get the go-ahead. Tamara Cohen, Sky News, Westminster.
The government has confirmed the opening of HS2 will be delayed beyond its 2033 target date, but gave no indication of when it will begin operating. Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander said a litany of failure had led to missed deadlines and costs rising.
It's an appalling mess, but it's one we will sort out. We need to set targets which we can confidently deliver, that the public can trust, and that will take time. But rest assured, where there are inefficiencies, we will root them out. Where further ministerial interventions are needed, I will make them without fear or favour. HS2 will finally start delivering on our watch.
The sole survivor of last week's Air India plane crash, which killed 241 people, has attended his brother's funeral in Western India after being discharged from hospital. Vishwas Kumar Ramesh's brother, AJ, was on the same flight that crashed shortly after takeoff from Ahmedabad Airport. The 40-year-old survivor helped to carry his brother's coffin during the service. A British grandmother has died after contracting rabies from a puppy during a holiday in Morocco. Yvonne Ford's daughter said she travelled to the North African country in February and was scratched very slightly, but didn't become ill until 2 weeks ago. The Princess of Wales has pulled out of attending Royal Ascot. It's understood the Princess is looking to find the right balance in managing engagement since recovering from cancer. The Prince of Wales, the King and Queen did take part in a royal procession before racing began. Now, the rap group Kneecap received a hero's welcome at Westminster Magistrates Court today, with one of the band facing a terror charge. Liam Hanna is accused of displaying a flag in support of Hezbollah, a proscribed organisation in the UK, at a gig last year. Our arts and entertainment correspondent Katie Spencer reports.
More like a mosh pit than a magistrate's court. As gigs go, rappers Kneecap certainly hadn't set out to appear here. Struggling to get through the crowds arriving alongside his bandmates, frontman Makara, summoned after being charged with a terror offence for allegedly displaying a flag in support of Hezbollah at a gig last year, whilst saying "Up Hamas, up Hezbollah." Provocation and humour has consistently been a part of their music, while they've built a following for their hedonistic anti-establishment tracks. They've also attracted critics who argue some of the things they've reportedly said go too far. From Northern Ireland, their USP being that they rap in Irish. His defence lawyers accepting the offer of an Irish interpreter going forward, should one be available. Presenting themselves as a voice of the oppressed, on and off stage, they've been vocally opposed to Israel's military action in Gaza. Their outspoken stance proving polarising, prompting a surge in streaming for their songs, and at the same time resulting in several of their gigs being cancelled, which has played into the narrative from some fans who feel the band is being silenced for speaking out.
When so much is being said about Kneecap on social media, online you'll find those who are suspicious the broadcasters are saying so little. But in reality, reporting restrictions, which kicked in as soon as the charges were brought, have meant that journalists have been massively limited in what we can and can't say about this to prevent contempt of court.
A stage with music and a brief altercation. This counter-protester with an Israeli flag seemingly removed for his own safety. While things were noisy outside, there was little opportunity inside for the band's frontman to speak, other than to confirm his real name as Liam Hanna. Magistrates pushing the case on to another hearing, much to the band's frustration.
Oppression fears for freedom of expression, but the reality is Kneecap will stand up for freedom of expression. They will defend their rights, not only the rights of them, but the rights of artists and people all around the world.
Leaving to a familiar sound, this exit a little more serious than their usual concert departures. Kneecap's frontman now required for a compulsory encore in court in August. Katie Spencer, Sky News.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview tonight, joined by the Daily Mirror columnist, Kevin Maguire, and the political commentator, Adam Bolton. Lovely to see both of you. Hello. And among the stories, we will be discussing this on the front page of The Guardian, the headline for tomorrow's paper: I may do, I may not. Trump keeps the world waiting on the US joining the war in Iran. Back with that and plenty more, of course, after this break.